your right hand, please. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do, so help me God.
I'll need a moment to get a recording audio. So this is yours. Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Ms. Zimmerman.
Tell us your name.
Gladys Zimmerman.
And I know that you would rather not state your address, correct?
Correct.
But tell me, you live in Seminole County?
I live
in Central Florida?
Central Florida.
Thank you. And how long have you lived in Central Florida?
6 years.
And, of course, you know George Zimmerman, correct?
Yes, sir.
And tell the jury how you know him.
He's my son.
And do you have other children?
Yes, sir.
Their names?
Robert John Zimmerman Jr., Grace Zimmerman.
And, of course, you know why we're here. Your son is in second-degree murder charge right now, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to talk to you or have you listen to a tape. I'm going to limit my questions to you today to just a couple regarding the tape. But premise that, have you listened to a tape that has the 911 phone call by Miss Laura with screams in the back of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If I might, Your Honor, I would like to play this. What I would like to do is let you listen to it one time through. I'm going to ask you if you know whose voice it is, or if you tell me if you want to listen to it a second time, or if not, okay?
Yes, sir.
As I begin that, I'm going to presume that you were around with George most of his life, correct, as he grew up as a child?
Yes, sir.
Had an opportunity to hear him in all different voices, laughing, screaming, yelling, crying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you think that you have enough knowledge of his voice that you would be able to tell his voice if you were to hear it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If I might, Your Honor.
(911) do you need police, fire, medical?
Maybe both. I'm not sure. There's just someone screaming outside.
Okay, what's the address that they're near?
1211 Twin Trees Lane.
Twin Trees Lane? Is this in the Twin Lakes homes in Sanford?
Yes.
Okay. And is it a male or female?
It sounds like a male.
And you don't know why?
I don't know why. I think they're yelling help, but I don't know. Just send someone to
Okay. Does he look hurt to you?
I can't see him. I don't want to go out there. I don't know what's going on. They're sending him.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right, what is your phone number?
Were you able to hear that voice?
Yes, sir.
In the background?
Yes.
You heard, of course, a woman's voice in the foreground, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you know whose voice that was screaming in the background?
Yes, sir.
And whose voice was that?
My son, George.
And are you certain of that?
Because he's my son.
At this time, no other questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Cross?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. De La Rionda.
Ms. Zimmerman, you have heard him yelling out for help or crying, or have you heard him just laughing and screaming?
All the above. All.
Isn't it true you've never heard him yelling or crying for help, yelling for help?
Not for help. Not in that distinction.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
If I may. You've never heard him screaming for his life before, have you?
Correct.
But regarding, I'll rephrase it. Have you ever heard him screaming for his life before this call?
What I'm sure is that that's George's voice.
Okay. So
The scream is I haven't heard him like that before, but the anguish that scream, that he's, the way that he's screaming, it describes to me anguish, fear. I would say terror.
And is that the anguish, fear, and terror, without question, of your son's voice?
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Zimmerman,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Were you finished with your answer?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
May Mrs. Zimmerman be excused?
Yes, for now.
On the subject of being recalled.
Okay.
Yes, we will maintain our discipline.
Okay, Mrs. Zimmerman, you're excused from the courtroom, but you may be recalled back. Okay, thank you. Call your next witness, please.
Jorge Meza, M-E-Z-A.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Help me God.
Thank you.
Afternoon. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
State your name, please,
My name is Jorge Meza.
and your occupation.
I'm currently a deputy sheriff with Orange County Sheriff's Office, assigned to the courthouse division.
And how long have you been in that position?
I've been in that position since September 2007.
Consistent from that time through today?
Yes, sir.
And before 2007, what type of work did you do?
I was previously assigned to the courthouse services division between May of 2000 until August 2003. Before that, I was in the Army. I served our nation for 26 years. I retired of the Army with the rank of a Command Sergeant Major, and I felt that it was my duty to serve my community.
And is that why you began service with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
In effect, if you weren't on the witness stand and we were maybe a county over, you might be sitting there or standing in the back?
That is correct. That would be my duty.
That's the type of work that you do.
Yes, sir.
So I presume that you've sat through more trials than probably anybody else in the courtroom, or except for these two individuals, correct?
I have had my share.
Okay. We bring you here today, though, not in your capacity as a deputy, but you're here because you know George Zimmerman. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. I am here as an uncle to George Zimmerman, not as a sworn deputy of the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
And then how long have you known George Zimmerman?
I have known George Zimmerman since October the 5th, 1983, the day he was born.
Okay. Were you in the you're still back in the Army then, correct?
Yes, sir. I was stationed, at that time I was stationed in Puerto Rico, and with a temporary duty assignment in Atlanta, Georgia, when the news arrived that my sister was actually having labor pains, and I was in transit, and when I was checking into the hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, is when I got the news that my nephew has been born.
And I was going to ask the connection, but I think you just told us in your story, and that is that you are you Gladys Zimmerman's brother?
Yes, I am.
And how many other siblings do you and she have?
She has her older son, Robert Jr., and then she has my niece, Christina.
And do you and she have any siblings? You and Gladys have any siblings?
My brother, Luis Miguel.
You are here today because I want to ask you if you've ever had an opportunity to listen to a 911 call that had certain voices in the foreground and then a screaming voice in the background.
Yes, sir, I did.
What I'd like you to do, if you would, is to tell the jury the first time and the circumstances that you had heard that call.
The exact date, I don't remember. It was sometime in March of 2012. If I could, I show you, this is my desk, and right behind me is my television. When I'm actually working the computer, my wife is watching the news. All what I did hear was the scream. A scream that it came immediately. Not only I just heard the scream, I felt the scream, like my nephew screaming for his life. It was a moment that I actually lived with me every moment that I heard the portion of that. Because it was the feeling of saying, oh, I heard Georgie. It was George screaming for his life. And I turned to my wife and I says, what are you watching? And she says, I'm watching the news. I says, but what is the news about? She says, they're playing the record of the 9/11 call pertaining to the person screaming. I said, that is George. And I stood up and looked at the TV. And I just didn't see anything else, but it was just the recording playing at that time.
This wasn't a situation where somebody played it for you to ask you to identify the voice?
No, sir, it was not.
Was this just coincidental that it happened to come on TV?
No, sir, it was not even coincidental. Like I said, I was just working on the computer doing exactly, I cannot really tell you what I was doing, but I was in the computer. And that voice just came and hit me. It hit me in a way that I heard that, but more than heard that, I felt it inside of my heart. That says, that is George.
Did you even know that the TV was addressing your nephew's case?
No, I did not.
Did your wife tell you anything about the fact that it was on TV?
Matter of fact, she did not.
Then, and I think you mentioned it, what was the very first thing that brought your attention to the TV?
His voice. His voice. The reason why I recognize his voice is very simple. I have had George play with my sons, my own sons. It is unique way that you recognize your family members when they laugh or when they cry. And this was the moment that I recognized George as screaming for help. It was George screaming for help.
Have a moment, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor, for the questions.
Thank you, Todd.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Just so the record is clear, you're not here speaking as a deputy sheriff, correct?
No, sir, I am not.
Okay. So the jury should just disregard when you were bringing about your qualifications, which are awesome. That has nothing to do with.
Let me object, Your Honor, to a suggestion that the jury should disregard. I'm sorry.
What's the legal basis for your objection?
Improper questioning of the witness. I'd rather do it at the bench than to speak.
Let me do it this way. The court is going to instruct you at the end of all the evidence of what the instructions are in the law that you're to follow. So I'm going to hope that you will follow those instructions. I'm going to instruct you to follow those instructions. I'm going to sustain the objection.
Go ahead and rephrase it. You're not here testifying as a deputy sheriff of Orange County Sheriff's
No, sir, I'm
correct?
not.
You're here testifying as George Zimmerman's uncle.
I am here as a witness of what I heard.
But you're here on behalf of George Zimmerman because he is your nephew. In other words, that's the relationship with you. Not because you're a deputy sheriff is what I'm trying to get.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were aware prior to hearing this on TV, the recording, you were aware that your son was involved in this shooting. You didn't know the facts, but you were aware of it, correct?
You mean my nephew?
I apologize. I said your son. I apologize. Your nephew, George Zimmerman.
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, so you were aware of that.
Yes, sir.
And what you're telling this jury is that you didn't know any of the specific facts, correct?
No.
And that was on purpose because you're a deputy sheriff in Orange County.
I am a sworn deputy law enforcement officer. If I actually wouldn't know any facts, details, information provided to me, it will be against my ethics and professionalism to get involved.
Right. So you on purpose kept out of it, is what I'm trying to
Yes.
get at. Is
Yes,
that
I did.
accurate?
Up
That
to
was
this
on
moment.
purpose?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. But you knew that he was involved in the shooting, you just didn't know the specifics.
I didn't know the specifics.
Okay. And you're saying as you heard this on TV, it was the news, I believe, correct?
That is correct.
And I think you stated your wife was watching the news.
That is correct, sir.
And then when you saw it, after hearing it, you saw it, there was something on about George Zimmerman case, right, on the news itself when you saw it, correct? There was
Before I saw what I saw, I heard the scream.
Right,
And that's what I get up and says, that is George. What are you watching?
right. And then when you saw the TV screen,
George-
it did have the name George Zimmerman on there, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I believe you stated you had heard him before playing with your son, correct?
That
him
is
being
correct.
George Zimmerman, I apologize.
I understand, yes, sir.
Okay. But you never had heard George Zimmerman crying out for help before, had you?
Not the way I did that day.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, redirect?
Briefly on some of the issues addressed. Obviously, you're not here as a deputy. Do you take your oath to tell the truth seriously?
I took my oath on 31 May 2000. I am the class of the millennium, and up to this day, I stand for my oath to the law of the state of Florida.
So, you would not color your testimony to favor your nephew, would you?
My ethics and professionalism is stated with the 26 years that I stayed in the Army, achieving the rank of Command Sergeant Major, and I will never compromise myself to do that either for my son, my daughter, or my nephew.
So much so that you decided to maintain that oath to just keep away from the facts of the case, correct?
That is correct.
These questions.
I'm sorry, what?
Leading.
Okay,
I'll acknowledge it was leading, it's just that it had just been testified to, but I'll rephrase it.
thank you.
Why was it that you decided not to find out more about the facts of what your nephew was going through?
As a law enforcement officer, you are sworn to actually tell the truth. I don't know when this moment was going to arrive that I was going to be sitting here, and I wanted to be able to look at everyone, members of the jurors, and tell them the truth.
Thank you, nothing further.
So if I understand you correctly, Mr. Mesa, you're saying that You anticipated that you would be hearing this recording and you were going to have to come in court and testify about it?
No, sir,
That's
you
why-
misunderstood what I said.
Okay, I want to make sure.
What I said is, as a law enforcement officer, the moment that I found out of this situation that arose, I disconnected myself totally from it.
You disconnected yourself totally from the case, not wanting to, you didn't want to find
I
anything
didn't
about it?
want to, no, sir, I didn't.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. May Mr. Meza be excused?
Yes, sir, I'll maintain subpoena over him, but for
Okay.
today.
Thank you, sir. You're excused from the courtroom, but you're subject to being recalled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Call your next witness, please.
Can we approach him on
Yes,
that?
you may. Gentlemen, this is a good breaking time for everybody. So I'm going to recess until Monday morning at 9 a.m. Over the weekend, you're not to discuss the case amongst yourselves nor with anybody else. You're not to read or listen to any radio, television, or newspaper reports about the case. You're not to use any type of electronic device to get on the internet to do any independent research about the case, people, places, things, or terminology. And you're not to read or create any emails, text messages, Twitters, tweets, blogs, or social networking pages about the case. Do I have all of your assurances that you will abide by these instructions? Okay, and with that, if you'll put your notepads face down, have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday at 9 a.m. And counsel, when their jury is out, can you approach for just one moment? Okay, there's nothing else that council needs the court's attention for. We're going to recess until Monday morning at 9 a.m. Have a good weekend. Court is in recess.